Here. Commissioner Dupuy,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Johns,
Here.
Commissioner Locke,
Here.
Commissioner McQuaid,
Here.
Commissioner Yu. Very good. And you've been doing a rotating land acknowledgement thing. So Chair Johns, do you have someone in mind? You're going from youngest to oldest, right?
We're going from young
You guys can decide amongst yourselves who that is.
The third, who would be the third person?
If we're going by youngest, I bet it's Commissioner.
I'm 48.
Sure, I'll go. So we're reading the land acknowledgement?
Yes.
The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lisjan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
You know, the minutes from the previous meeting on September 21st should have been attached to the rest of the meeting materials. So are we in a position to approve the minutes?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All right, let's vote then. Commissioner Downs,
Yes.
Commissioner Dupuy,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Yes.
Commissioner Johns,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
Commissioner McQuaid,
Yes.
Commissioner Yu.
Yes.
And we can move on to public comment. Looks like we have one. There's no one in the chambers room with us, but it looks like you have a raised hand in virtual. Okay, Sinye Matson, go ahead.
Thank you. I would be there in person if I were able. I would like to call attention to the just recent reading of the land acknowledgement. City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. As this commission is a part of the City of Albany, I would encourage the members of this group to become familiar with the Segoriate Land Trust website and have a look not only at that, but at their Facebook page so that you all can become familiar with this group of people that you are committing to sustaining and ongoing relationships with. So just so you, I guess I could email it later, but the website, SOGOREATE-landtrust.org. Beyond becoming familiar with the great work that they are doing and looking for ways that you individually and collectively can participate, I'm also thinking about your relationship with the Albany Police Department, and perhaps you could consider wanting to make sure that the Albany Police Department is recruiting from Native people, and also perhaps forming fraternal relationships with some indigenous tribal police departments generally. That's basically what I'd like to say this evening. So thank you for your service, and I encourage you to actually form relationships and build so that this becomes more than a recitation at the beginning of a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like, yeah. I don't see any other requests for public comment, so we can move on to number 4, which is announcements. I just have a brief announcement. I know that at the last meeting, we discussed the murder situation at the Toyota of Berkeley along East Shore next to Target. I just wanted to sort of update you that it's still an ongoing investigation, so there's not much we can share publicly at this point. Just that it's ongoing and the investigation remains in progress. I might also suggest that, yeah, Commissioner Downs, I was going to suggest that you let us know how the work plan approval went at council.
That's, you can report that when you're discussing the work plan.
Okay, we can hold off on that. Anyway, what was your comment going to be otherwise?
I was just going to do an announcement about the council meeting.
Gotcha, okay.
Also, I'd like to add that the any current press release regarding the case can be located on the Police Department crime graphic page, and that will be the best resource for information on the case moving forward. Could probably share the page.
I think we're going to share, yeah, the crime mapping page, just so you can get a sense of what it looks like. So it's on the city webpage in the police department section.
And then you can view the map and do a location search.
Okay. So does anyone else on the commission have an announcement they want to make? No. Okay, so let's open it up to public comment real quick. Still no one in the briefing room here in the council chambers. And I'm presently not seeing anyone virtual who wants to comment. So we can move on to number 5. Just sort of a new topic. We're calling it informational reports.
So this is one of the reasons why I'm present today instead of just Luke. We've added a section to the Policing Commission agenda, informational report, and as included in the resolution establishing this commission, as well as in the work plan that you guys just developed, the commission will receive information and relevant data on particular items from the police department. Staff has developed this report as a dashboard to provide data on a monthly basis to the commission. This dashboard will be included on the commission's meeting agenda as an informational item or informational report. The attached memo, as prepared by our police chief, aims to provide definition for the data categories. And should the commissioners have any questions on this data, staff will note them down and report back if additional information is available to be shared. And in addition to this dashboard on report, staff representative from the police department will be attending upcoming commission meetings to provide presentations on a few different topic areas, including things like update regarding the mobile crisis team pilot program and overview of stop data and reporting. And if you notice on the, if you notice on the dashboard, there's a disclaimer on the information is really preliminary, so it will be updated from time to time.
Thank you for this. Just one quick question. As we get updated dashboards, can we have them include the September data so we can see when we look at October in our next meeting, that we can see the October in relation to September? Does that make sense? So that we can start to accumulate a sense of monthly data over time. It'll help us understand how to read the numbers relative to prior.
Just so I understand, did you want just the prior month, or do you want it cumulative? So cumulative means it might be.
Right, it'll get longer. Well, I mean, I'm just one person. I think I can imagine why a cumulative will require some exciting things on turning the paper or something, and that it could reach. But I think at least for next month to keep this month, and then I'm open to what people
Well,
think is
maybe
the right number.
if there's space, without taking up too much, creating a giant report, maybe like a rolling 3 months. So when the new month comes up, then the fourth month behind us falls off, just so we can identify trends if something's going up, I think.
We can definitely see what, we can attach, or, there's also these attachments stay on the web. They don't go away. So if you ever need, you can always go back to the prior month meeting and find those data if you need. But we will definitely try to see how many months we can show on one page. We're trying to keep it simple so that you see it as a quick view of the data.
Anyone else?
I've got one more, but I want to let other people speak first, if anybody does.
Member Downs?
Is it also, I know this will stay on the city website under the archived agenda minutes. Is it also possible to look into different ways of embedding this data on the police department tab? Because I feel like there will be people who go to that who don't know to look for the commission and the minutes, since it is already public information, to find a kind of data tab that we could just add these to.
Yeah, I could definitely check with the police department, because each department kind of handle their own department's webpage. I can check in to see how they navigate, what is the best way to navigate that data.
Anyone else? All right. So do we move then to discussion of the work plan?
Yes, well, we have to open up for public comment real quick for section 5. There remains nobody in the council chambers. I'm not seeing anyone online raising their hands. And there are no presentations this week. So let's move on to number 7, which is discussion and possible action on matters relating to the following items. 7.1 is the work plan. So the idea here was basically just to start drilling down a bit and getting an idea of what you wanted to cover, when, consider subcommittees, that kind of thing.
Would you like an update just on the council meeting?
Sure.
And
Thanks.
Commissioner McQuaid was also there, so she can, if I leave out something, which no doubt I will, I'd be glad for her to come in. So council considered this. I spoken, on behalf of the commission about the process and about the outcome. There were some, questions that came up, both about, mostly I would say about how often we thought the regular reports would come. And I said that, partly we're still trying to understand what data exists already, and, what's easy to turn around in different timetables. And so, they were interested in that and could imagine that over the course of our term, if I understood them right, that, we might be able to present for the next commission a clearer sense of what these were, but they understood why we didn't know that at the start, of how, which ones we'd want monthly, which quarterly, which biannually. But they were extremely complimentary of the work plan. They were complimentary, I don't want to say surprised, but complimentary that we had achieved unanimity. And they wanted to acknowledge that it is more difficult to start a work plan with a beginning commission than to continue one that has one that they can look to modify. So they conveyed, gratitude on those fronts, and which I attribute to the good work of the subcommittee, producing one that, formed the backbone of this, and then to all of us and Chair John's leadership in coming to consensus. And so it passed unanimously by council.
Perfect.
Anyone have anything else to add? All right.
Seems like we might, pivot to talking about what, we would want to prioritize, right, for our future meetings, if there's not questions coming from that. Is that in the scope of how you understood the agenda item? Discuss prioritization of work plan items and
Exactly
potential
right.
formation of ad hoc subcommittees.
Yes.
Are the-
And Member Dupuy, you seem to have some particular,
Actually, I was just thinking about this. Are we just going to prioritize sort of 1 through 7? There's 7 items here. So just so I know for tonight, we're going to try to hone in on the prioritization and then determine the frequency with which we would be requesting these reports. Do we still yet know if this data is readily available, or?
I can't say exactly when, but at a meeting relatively soon, either the chief or one of his lieutenants will come and discuss a little bit more about what's
Okay.
like how regularly they can make those offerings and things like that.
Because I feel like it's sort of hard to prioritize or say what frequency we want to, if we don't know if what's available, We obviously don't want them, spinning their wheels trying to create or, pull out this information if it's, incredibly difficult. If something's easier to pull than others, then maybe that could be a higher priority, or we can get it with more frequency, and something that might be more difficult, So I think that at that juncture, we really do need more cooperation with the police themselves, because we don't know what they can generate. That's my feeling anyway.
Sorry, are you done? Okay, cool. Well, I would be interested in, I think as Member Downs had alluded to, seeing this data that we're now getting as a commission being made available on the police department's website. I'm aware that in our previous discussions, we talked about, like in specific data surrounding, like, to be specific in traffic stops, for example, perceived race, ethnicity, gender, age, English fluency, that sort of data. And I'm aware that that data is currently already being gathered as RIPA reports. So I would be interested in seeing that publicized, like made available on the website to the public, given that it already does exist. So I don't think they'd be spinning their wheels to start gathering new data. And I'm not currently seeing that on the crime mapping portal on the police department's tab on the website. So I think that'd be something that I'd be interested in seeing in the future.
Member Downs?
Notice one thing that Chief Geisberger notes at the end of the cover letter for the data is intend on participating to further discuss police data, and does say particular attention to stop data, how it is gathered along with analysis interpretation. I think it would be helpful for us, because of the issue Commissioner Dupuy mentioned, to ask for an overall understanding of, what's the data at hand already? What are the different ways that it comes up to him or to department leadership, so that we can then assess what are the things we're asking where it exists, and it's literally just add as an attachment, What are the things where it exists easily at certain points of time and not others? So maybe we could ask for a general, prioritize prioritize both the specific issue that both the Commissioner and Chief Geisberger mentioned on stop data, but also just how data is put together. What I could imagine we could, get possibly farther on is which of the briefings, since the briefings are about, procedures, about, past history, that this we might have more, leeway to say, I really want to make sure, before the end of the year, we do 1, 2, and 3, or although I guess November will be next time, but at least we do, what are the 2 we'd like to see in November, December, since those, won't be as dependent on exact crime reporting. And on the back, I do think it would make sense for us to, open to what's the process, but to discussing our qualifications and qualities of any potential consultant. I think we want to eventually have that as a recommendation to council. I think that it will take us a while because it presents very hard challenges of, how to decide how much to have expertise versus how much to have different types of, prior work. There's all kinds of different things that circulate as goals for this kind of consultant. So I think it would probably take us a couple meetings for people to really have time to weigh it, and then potentially an ad hoc committee to write it up. So I would also want to prioritize that as something we put on our November, not with the expectation we solve it, but that we kind of all think about it and come prepared in November to say, let me put on the table some things I would like to ask council to prioritize if and when we need a consultant.
I agree. Also, I would think, when we gathered for the first time at the birth of our commission here, the Albany Crisis Team was just getting underway. I think that when I came in for my tour or orientation to the police department, they had only just started that prior Monday. But now we've been at this for 4 months. I feel like they probably have some information they could bring to us, and I think that maybe a quarterly briefing from them would be appropriate. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about that, but I feel like a quarterly report or briefing from them would be good. And I'm wondering if there is sort of like a log of the calls that they've gone out on, and sort of what the resolution of those calls were, whether they were turned over for like further police action, if they were, if they involved some other, resources, mental health resources, or whatever the case may be, or social services, or what the resolution of the call was, or if they just, settled the situation and left it. So anyway, yeah, some kind of reporting on that. Because they were, like I said, new about the time that we were new, and it would be good to know what's progress or what success, if any, has been gleaned from that.
And just so I'm clear, would you like to hear that directly from members of the crisis team?
I mean, ideally, yes. I don't know if that's possible.
Because I think as we're discussing our priorities and our expectations and what we assume we can get in the future, it's good for us to just say it now and say it over and over and over again until we get it. So rather than waiting for the bureaucratic response, we set higher expectations and clear expectations. Seems reasonable to everyone.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'd rather think about this as more of a partnership, in that we ask for what we want, listen to the response, continue the dialogue, not start out in a very adversarial, you will do this or you will not do that. Start out, much more collegial. These are the things we're interested in. how can we make this happen?
I agree. I didn't mean to sound more combative than I may have said. I do agree that it's a partnership, but I also think that as a commission and as a new commission, we need to be clear on what we expect and what we're hoping to accomplish for the community, right?
Yeah, and circling back to my original point about the regular reports and saying, like, I don't even know what's available, I feel like that sort of, that we need to work together with them in terms of finding out, I mean, is it unreasonable to ask for a quarterly briefing? Maybe it is. I don't know what their schedule is like. I know there was a limited number of people in the crisis team. You know, I don't want to overwork somebody or create, you know, a difficult situation. So that's why I feel it's important that, you know, members of the leadership of the police department and or the membership or the leadership of the crisis team comes here so that we can have those conversations, you know, in real life, in real time, and we can get something accomplished at this meeting. Because like right now, again, we're talking about it and we're going to need information back from them before we can decide what it is we're asking of them. Otherwise, we're just, you know, yeah. And that's been my frustration a little bit, that it's a lot of talk and, you know, I don't know. I would like to see more involvement and, yeah.
Well, I support your holding our feet to the fire.
Mr. Chair? Luke, did I understand you to say that either November or December, there would be police staff of some type here to have this discussion about prioritizing some of these requests? Is that what I heard you say?
I can't commit to when it's going to be, but in the next few meetings at some point, Chief is, like, he wants to have this discussion with you, or depending on his schedule, it might be one of his lieutenants, but they're well aware that, you know, that the commission needs stuff to work with. We're gonna try to schedule it as best we can.
Because what we put in the rate for under regular reports was prioritized with staff, so it seems like that's what you're trying to do. So I think, you know, that's good.
And as I reported earlier, there will be representative from the police department that's going to come here and present things like, you know, the mobile crisis team and things like the stop data and reporting.
We don't know when.
It would be one of the upcoming meetings.
I just feel like we're kind of stuck until we have those kinds of like direct communications with them. I mean, the best we could do at this point is go through and say, we would like these briefings at these intervals, and just say it like, you know, this is what we would like in a perfect world. But then we have to wait until they come and say whether that's reasonable, whether it's something that's going to happen. And so we're sort of.
And that's certainly something you can do. You can say, this is our wish list, per se. This is what we'd like to see. And then they can come back and say, this is feasible, and this one we can maybe provide you more often than what you're asking, or maybe less often than, you know, just something for, if you present your wish list, then we can go back and they can, let you know what is feasible and what may need a little more time to work with.
So I kind of concur with a lot of what's being said here. In order to make sound policy decisions, we have to have access to the data. I think that, or at least an inventory of the data. I think that's what we're trying to say, right? And so at this point, without having that available, it's hard to say the frequency of occurrence, the usage statistics. Are we focusing our efforts on a problem that's a relatively rare occurrence? And so I think what might be a useful application of our time here today is to do just that. What Ann recommended is to prioritize those data points that we want to have access to, and hopefully setting a timetable and working with staff to make that accessible to us in a presentation before this committee. I think otherwise, we're basing a lot of the decisions on supposition, and I don't think that that's a sound foundation going forward.
Jones?
I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of the data reports. I do think on the briefing side, where we're looking at more sort of how, what is our current practice? How did this develop? We might be able to get farther in saying, I think Commissioner Dupuy, ACT is on both, but, the crisis team could occur there. I can imagine wanting to know as early as possible what the complaint policy and history is, in case something does come up, so that we approach with that. I can imagine thinking, budget and negotiation, we might try and structure those at a time, ask what's the right time frame for fitting within the overall budget process or negotiation process. The other big ones are training recruitment, which is, one I'd be glad to have anytime, and then policy changes, we probably would like to be able ourselves to hone in a little bit, because they have a big policy handbook, as they should, and I imagine some of them we have strong interest in, use of force, say, and others might be, have less commission interest. So I do think we can probably, at least sort of lift up the ones, ACT, complaint history, training, and then the data inventory is things that we would hope to get to as quickly as we could on that side.
So might it be useful to assign ordinal numbers like 1 through 7, essentially, and discuss that during the time that we have here? I think that might be an efficient use of our time here as a committee. If anybody would like to propose their number 1, and then we could have discussion.
Well, I would like to see the complaint policy and history be up there among the highest priorities, and especially to do with the online form that's now available, and to have a discussion of our own role in that process. I also had a question. Would it be possible to request that RIPA data be available in the next meeting's dashboard?
Sorry, what was the question?
Would it be possible to request RIPA data and stop data be included in the next meeting's dashboard? Is that something we can ask for right now?
So which kind, stop data and what else?
Stop data and
RIPA data.
RIPA data.
Or IPA.
RIPA, yeah.
We'll check with the police staff about that.
And does the department have an information officer? Does the police department have an information officer?
Information officer?
No.
No.
Okay.
We
But
don't
this-
have a designated just police department's information officer. We have a information officer for the city as a whole.
Okay.
So if I may suggest, we can go down the line, and then perhaps, I've done this with other commission or committees. If you could just name what your top 3, by rank, what's your rank number 1? Not saying that, will end up being that, but at least we know what it is that you guys would like to see first out of all these 7 briefings. And if you name your 1, 2, 3, and then the next commissioner 1, 2, 3, and then we can see how it pans out.
Start down the line.
I'll endorse the commissioner's 1 of complaint policy history. I don't have strong feelings between 2 and 3, but the next 2 that I would have, and I'll just say 2 so that I'm obedient to our clerk. I'll say 2 for the crisis team and 3 training recruitment. And if I had 4, it would be after we've honed down the policies, the specific policies that we want.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, we are ranking the briefing priorities, not the reports?
Correct.
Okay.
Briefings.
Okay. Yeah, so I would rank the complaint policy and history number 1, the Albany crisis team number 2, and probably policies and policy changes number 3.
I would rank complaint policy and history as well as number 1. The Albany crisis team as 2, and data, what is available publicly and when, as number 3.
Did you say the third one was data?
Yeah, data, sorry.
My priorities would be complaint policy and history, policies and policy changes, I want to say structure of the negotiation process, but I'm not certain how often that takes place. Is that once every 2 years, once every 4 years?
Well, I believe, and don't quote me, I may be wrong, briefings may be at least come as an initial step to be a presentation. And then they'll see what follows after that. But at least they will come and present the information so that you understand what it is, and then to see what the next steps are.
All right.
For 1, complaint policy and history. For 2, training and recruitment. And for 3, policies and policy changes.
I'd say 1, complaint policy, 2, the crisis team, and 3, training and recruitment.
I'll say complaint policy and history, policies, policy changes for 2, and then for 3 I'll have Albany crisis team.
Seems pretty clear, doesn't it?
Yeah, at the risk of stating the obvious, I think your number 1 request is complaint policy. I'll rank that number 1.
And history. Don't forget
Yes,
that part.
yes. I'm not using like an Excel matrix here or something, but it looks like crisis team might be number 2 overall. They got 3 number 2 votes. And policies and changes and training and recruitment are about even. That's the number 3. So we have a clear 1 and 2, and then you guys want to specify what's 3 and what's 4, and or
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with that too.
3A and 3B. I'll call them that.
Hope on, not ranking data was the priority in the chief's letter suggesting that we interpret the data. I'd be looking for follow-up after that. I apologize. The one question I did have, I'm great with the order, is I wonder if staff could let us know what the budget timeline is, or perhaps Commissioner McQuaid, her years on council, just so that we know sort of when does the budget come up? What are the different stages that it goes through from department to council level?
What I know is at this very last council meeting earlier this week, we just got a budget for the year-end update. And all those are, I mean, if you're curious, before the budget presentation come, or before you dig into the budget, is the video is always online. And if you click on the agenda, there should be a play button next to the item, and if you click that, it will take you right to the item.
And then my additional question was, is there a general time frame that council tries to follow for when does it get presentations for the next year's budget? When does it take up the next year's budget? When does it aim to pass it by?
Well, it's a biennial budget, so I believe we just passed one for 2 years. So it's usually right before summer, spring, late spring, summer.
And it's likely there wouldn't be another budget passed until the next commission is seated, if I'm understanding you right? Because we will expire next December.
Correct.
So it might be taken up over next fall, but it would be, okay. That's very helpful. Thank you.
So I just wanted to comment on, I knew within the minority that didn't rank the ACT in the top 3. I wanted to explain sort of my rationale for that. I know that we all, during our orientations, received a briefing about the concept, how it's operating. I believe then, as Commissioner Dupuy mentioned, it really was in its infancy. Very much so, just a few days or into existence. I wonder if we have a sufficient data set to make a briefing at this time very useful for us. I think definitely the information is something that we need to have, but that was sort of my rationale for leaning towards a more robust data set, perhaps later on. As far as training and recruitment, I think that's really at the core of any organization, organizational culture, organizational policy. People are policy of any organization. And so I'm very interested in hearing more about that. If you drive past this very building that we're in on Buchanan, you can see the recruitment advertisement. And I think that's a very timely topic, one that has so many knock-on effects for all of the other things that we're talking about, for daily interactions, and goes to the very heart of the purpose of this policing commission, which is furthering community participation and engagement regarding these policies. And we don't interact with an abstract concept called the police department. We interact with people, with patrol officers, men and women who do this job. And so I'm very excited to get some of that information. I think it could be the starting point of a lot of the heart of the work that this commission can do.
Yeah, just as a reminder, I understand that there's ranking here, and of course, the staff will try their best to go with that, but sometimes there might be, one briefing that is ready sooner than the other one. And so, but yeah, staff will definitely try to look at what you guys' ranking are and then try to bring them as soon as they can.
And to your point about the training and recruitment, I believe it was our first meeting when the chief was in here, and he was describing the state of understaffed that they were. So it would be interesting to learn, are we fully staffed at this point? Has there been improvement on that front? Or have those people been fully trained? What's the status in terms of staffing? Has there been any turnover? Are we, losing as many as we're gaining? Or, just to see where we're at with that. Because, to your point, I don't think any operation can do its best work if it's not fully staffed. So I think it's important that we stay, informed on that.
I wonder if, I want all of these all at once, so I don't want to, wrestle over, which is which. It's hugely important. I do wonder if we could ask if the dashboard could just include an update, since I believe it is public record, of searches or open positions in uniformed and non-uniformed, and that way we could see just sort of month to month. We've got a lot more openings than last month. We have no openings. Might at least, help us track trends there. It would not replace a broader briefing on the way that we recruit and the successes and failure and limitations of it.
You know, I have to say something about that. Just, I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then I'm thinking, but I don't know how you always quantify it. Like, supposing we have 25 sworn, and maybe the chief knows that in 6 months, 3 of those people are going to retire. Well, you can't put that on a dashboard. Or there's 3 people in background, or there's a big job fair coming. Or, so I think the idea is good. I just don't know how to quantify it to where it makes sense. I don't know, maybe you could suggest something else, but it's such a fluid number, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, and I think what you're thinking is like, okay, if the chief knows that there's going to be openings forthcoming, and so they post job postings to backfill those at the time, so it looks like the positions are open, but I think that would be easily reconciled by saying, I mean, they know what fully staffed looks like, right? So it's
I
just,
don't think we've ever seen fully staffed.
I know, but just hypothetically.
There was
say-
one day, I do remember, there was one day, yes, we got it.
Hypothetically, it's like, 40 uniformed officers, let's just say. So you say, this is the number that would equate to fully staffed, and this is the number that we have now. So you can see there is a gap there, Because to your point, yeah, job openings wouldn't necessarily speak to openings now. They could be for filling future positions. But if we know how many we should have and how many we actually have, then it's pretty plain that there's a gap. Or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question from Commissioner McQuaid. I mean, one thing I don't know is, do we post an opening, a general opening that we have posted all the time? So saying, we have one ad, but, that doesn't correspond to the number of positions we're looking for. Do we post a different opening that we open and close for each search? So if it's the latter, we could just say, how many open searches are there? If it is the former, if we just have a general call without that doesn't close, then maybe something like what Commissioner Dupuy mentioned of whatever council budgeted as the total number of budgeted officers. How much are we, we'll never be plus, right? How much are we below that? At a snapshot. I think asking the chief to predict the future or if he knows something to say, that I think is not fair. I agree with that. Just on a snapshot today.
Does this give staff enough information? Should we ask the public?
Are you guys ready to ask the public? Or do you want to keep discussing your priorities for a little longer? We have plenty of time.
No, I mean, I'm good with where we're at with prioritizing, because I don't really want to get too far ahead and have all these lofty ideals, and then they come in and say, we can't do any of that, or we can do a limited number of that. Then we're back to square one, and we would have spent all of this time discussing something that can never happen, I feel like we really need to have that meeting of the minds with them, and that's my feeling.
Well, to that question, I have a pretty good idea what your priorities are now, and I sort of know what I need to communicate to the department to sort of get the wheels moving on that. So I think we're in pretty good shape for the next few meetings at least. Chair Downs, are you okay? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Chair Johns, are you comfortable moving on?
Yes.
Okay. So that was a nice long discussion. Let's open that up to public comment. Still no one in the council chambers. And I'm giving the virtual public a moment, but I'm not seeing any raised hands. So I think we will move on. And the next agenda item is future agenda items, which I feel like is sort of coterminous with what we've been talking about, but if there's anything particular you want to mention now, now's the time.
I would like to suggest, if people are amenable, that we agendize a discussion, preliminary discussion of qualifications and qualities of a potential consultant, that we could, individually contemplate this or research, or if anybody is aware of something they want to share, perhaps they could send it to you, Luke, and then you could distribute. Obviously, we're not supposed to distribute amongst ourselves, but anybody is aware of research or, professional standards on this that, they want us to read, I'd certainly read anything somebody sent. Just agendize that we discuss that, and including a potential formation of an ad hoc subcommittee. I don't think, my judgment is a subcommittee now would be starting from scratch, but if we had a discussion amongst the entire commission, then maybe it's possible then at the next meeting that the subcommittee could be ready to go off and write up some things to stimulate discussion and a resolution for the December meeting.
So just sort of clarify, like if you guys have, your thoughts about what you want to see in a consultant, the forum to really discuss it is actually obviously in the meeting itself. So to the extent that you want to send me things, you can, but the discussion is actually going to happen in here, obviously, because anything else would be a Brown Act violation. And if there's enough meat on the bones that could, that there's a staff report or something we could make, we can consider that, but by and large, it'll just be a discussion that happens amongst you guys at the meetings.
So just to clarify, you're suggesting that for a future agenda item for next time, we will discuss amongst us what we deem desirable in a potential consultant, and then at that point, after that discussion, we would develop our ad hoc committee.
Potentially.
Okay. Yeah.
The future us.
Okay.
If we have a discussion where we lay things out, then maybe we would be ready to have a subcommittee to bring things up for the next meeting. If we're not, then we're not. Does that make sense to you?
Is that something we have to make a motion on or whatever to put it on the agenda, or no?
Not at this point.
Just is, okay.
I would also appreciate another report on the shooting, if new information comes in.
I'll just say generally, like with respect to this incident and hopefully not other future incidents, but if they come, ongoing incidents, there's not much the police can share publicly while they're investigating. So just have that in mind, that, for obvious investigatory reasons, they're only going to be able to divulge so much. So just keep that in mind. To the extent there is anything new to report, I'm happy to do so. Any other future agenda items that you all would like to discuss?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. So we have a comment from the public. This section, it's only 1 minute for comment. And let's, Cindy Matson, go ahead.
Regarding your consideration of qualifications for a consultant, I believe in an earlier discussion, someone did raise the issue of their having lived experience with police departments. So I just want to remind you that that's come up and that it's quite crucial. So thank you.
Thank you. It appears that is our only hand up. And council chamber is still empty. So I think we're reaching the end here. The next agenda item is next meeting. As always, it's the third Thursday of the month, which happens to be November 16th, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. I think there being no other business tonight, we can adjourn at 7:56 p.m.
Nice, good job. Thank you, everyone.
I know you'll be on.